But I got a haircut. I don't know if you noticed or
You got a big time haircut. You got a big cut, dog.
as soon as it was cut off, it invited questions of who am I? And
Oh, I know what you mean.
is this me?
Yeah.
Wasn't
What
the long hair me? This isn't me.
It's tough to have an existential crisis while staring in a mirror, for sure.
You're like, man, maybe I should have gotten a PhD. Maybe I should have backpacked across Europe.
I'll never get that. You only get one shot at life. One tear. She's like, is the water too hot? No, I'm just beefing it right now. Just the soup.
Water too hot. 1, 2, 3, 4.
These boys only want the best stuff. They want the cream of the crop. They don't want none of that Michael Bay shit. They want the shit that pops. Oscar bait, black and white. Maybe something French. If it's got more than one explosion, honey, put that shit on the bench. Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners. These boys are the Oscar Wieners.
Yum, yum.
Oscar Wieners.
Welcome to Oscar Wieners,
How you doing?
the only show on the internet where Hollywood's biggest night may take our lives, but can never take all the infinite opportunities Hollywood will allow us, despite just a fucking sewer dump of slurs and bad behavior that we say publicly and privately. I'm kilt.
And I'm stilt.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And this is a podcast where every week we pick a Best Picture winner at random and try to figure out if it's Best Picture worthy. And this week we're talking about the 1996 Best Picture winner, Braveheart.
Wow, our birth year.
Yeah. Well, it came out in 95, 96 is the Oscars.
But this was the Oscar that this is like Braveheart starring Mel Gibson is like our astrological sign.
Yeah.
You know, being spiritually tied to Mel in this one weird instance.
And only this one weird instance.
We should stress only this.
Yeah, Braveheart, directed by Mel, starring Mel as sorry, say it.
Is he an often director?
He is directed. See, I thought this was his first movie. This is his second film. His first movie is 2 years earlier, and it's called The Man Without a Face, which I've never seen, never even really heard of.
That was pretty nondescript.
And then I think after Braveheart, the next movie he directs is Passion of the Christ, which is like 9 years later.
Oh. Been in movies in that runtime.
Yeah, he's always acting.
Got it.
Less of late.
Yeah.
And Braveheart is about William Wallace, the Scottish he was a real guy, but also is sort of at this point a myth kind of folk hero guy. I'm just going to read the letterbox synopsis so we could just kind of get into it. Enraged at the slaughter of Muireann, his new bride and childhood love, Scottish warrior William Wallace slays a platoon of the local English lord's soldiers. This leads the village to revolt and eventually the entire country to rise up against English rule.
Is he confirmed a real guy, or is he kind of like one of those mythological, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't? Is he like a Shakespeare, where they're like, maybe he wasn't real?
Thing is, and what's so funny, like the Wikipedia page for this movie is so funny because like, you know, for like historical movies, it'll be like historical accuracy or whatever. And across the board, historians are like, yeah, we don't know like a lot about William Wallace, but this movie definitely is like completely inaccurate.
Real. I didn't expect it to be like totally accurate, but I
The basic setup is true. It's like apparently his wife was killed, um, and he like avenged her by basically starting a war against England. What is your relationship to Braveheart? Your favorite film?
I really have no relationship to Braveheart. I mean, obviously, it's a film that's storied throughout history. I feel like most people know the thrust of Braveheart, or at least maybe some poignant lines or iconography from it. That's kind of like where my relationship was. Like I was familiar with it. It was one of those movies that I think without Oscar Wieners, I don't think I ever would have watched just because I knew enough about it to feel like I get the idea and then would pass it up. Um, the only thing I ever like, the only expectation I had going into this was get me juiced up. You know what I mean? Inject me with the spirit of I'm a nation who's rebelling against a much larger superpower, and I gotta go do the deed and rile up some of my compatriots.
And did it?
Yeah, I think it did. There are some there are moments of like the moment where I think the most famous scene where he's riding around on the horse and he's like, "They won't take our freedom." I was pretty juiced.
Yeah.
I was in my face and just like go storming down the streets of Brooklyn and just start yelling at strangers. I was juiced up from all these dudes just freaking with spears just going at. There's something magnetic about just like 1,000 guys and 1,000 people just like running at each other. That's like a charge of electricity.
So you like this movie?
I will say I like this movie. There are many aspects of it where I wasn't like going crazy over it, but um, I did think it fulfilled its one promise of being being something that I can rotate in some of the audio into my workout playlist just to get some motivational boost.
This is a real grind set mindset movie, I think.
Yeah. I do think it's a problem that the movie starts like 40 minutes in.
Yeah, let's talk about there's like a 20-minute kind of prologue,
Yeah.
I would say, where William Wallace's father and brother are killed when William is like, I don't know, like 12 or something or 11. And then his fucking cool ass Uncle Argyle, played by Brian Cox, comes and is like, "You're coming with me, my boy." And I'm like, this rules. Let's just get a whole movie of this guy.
I thought he was going to be such a major character, and then he disappears.
He disappears.
You can't just make Uncle Argyle disappear. He will live rent free in my head forever.
Yeah, and then like we return, like it's been like 15 years or something like that, and now William Wallace is you know, a grown man. Even though I think he's supposed to be like he's probably only supposed to be in like his like mid-20s in this, even though Mel Gibson does not look in his mid-20s. He has lines on his face that only a racist could have. You know what I mean? um, yeah, he returns on horseback. He seems like a very peaceful, kind of chill, kind of fun guy.
Yeah.
He We see her for like a second, like as a little girl, Murin. As an adult, she's played by Catherine McCormick. Um, they spark up a romance. It's sort of like they have these clandestine meetings because like the father, Murin's father is kind of weird because it's like she doesn't approve of William because like I don't really know. It's like he's like prove to me that you're like not gonna fight, and he's like, I just said I wasn't going to, and he's like, not good enough, and I'm like, I don't get it.
Well, I mean, in the end, he's right because he does end up
Starting a war.
So I guess he was vindicated in the end.
How did you feel? This movie reminded me a lot of Dances with Wolves in certain ways.
Interesting.
Like all these historical epics, it's always like there's always a romance. I feel like historical epics, maybe they're trying to give an audience the, maybe they're trying to reach as varied an audience as possible. So you got romance for who they presume the ladies of the audience will want. I'm just generalizing. I'm
You're,
generalizing what a fucking stupid executive thinks.
yeah.
Here's action for the boys. Like, did you care about the romance between Murin and William?
I thought it was charming.
Yeah.
But it did feel very standard standard issue. You know what I mean? Like I didn't like that as soon as she's introduced as a character, as soon as like they had like a gratuitous shot of her as a child, just like as soon as they had like a close up of her as a kid, I was like, oh, he's gonna marry her. You know what I mean? Like you can't be able to snipe that from 1,000 yards away. They introduced what was the queen's name?
Princess Isabel. Is that
Yeah,
played by
Princess.
Sophie Marceau?
Yeah, as soon as her friend was like, maybe he'll kill the king or something, I was like, oh well, then he's gonna remarry her. This is gonna be her new love interest, his new love interest, and it was.
It's just so weird. Like, so I don't think Mirren. I think Catherine McCormick's performance is good. I think she does probably what she's asked to do, which is like be sort of like charming and pretty for 20 minutes, and then you're gonna get killed. So, and then William is going to use your death as just motivation to fucking destroy England or whatever.
It's just so old and overdone.
Yeah.
Like even in the 90s when this came out, it was overdone at this point. Like we've seen so many in the Best Picture pantheon that follow that same formula that at this point, can we write some new storylines for God's sakes?
100%.
I guess we shouldn't be looking to Gibson to write an in-depth and nuanced portrayal of a woman love interest. So
Yeah. Um, yeah, maybe we're truly barking up the wrong tree. Yeah, and then there's just like a bunch of action scenes and
those are the scenes I think it does really well. I give it credit for at least like promising that and then delivering on that.
I will say I do like watching the action scenes. This movie really made me think about though I think also just because it's like Mel Gibson doing it.
Yeah, that does taint it a bit.
And he has a history of like Passion of the Christ is basically just like a 2-hour movie where he like beats the shit out of Jesus, and you're like, why am I watching this? He's like, this fucking guy, look what he had to go through for us. And I'm like, aren't you anti-Semitic? This guy was Jewish. It seems like there's like subtextual stuff that you're not talking about. Um, but like it made me really like this movie really made me think about like what makes a good action scene? Because the action scenes in this movie, the battles, like I think they're well staged. I think they're well shot, for the most part, and like there's like a lot of like, I think Mel, is good at like bringing kind of new aspects to each battle, where it's like, oh, now we have like the long spears that they carved, and that's like a new thing, and it's like to show how innovative the Scots are in thinking about war and warfare. But I feel like a lot of the action scenes too are just like it's truly just like 50 shots of like throats being slit, hands being chopped off. Like, and I'm just like, is this just violence though? Is this really action?
So I don't think it was just shallow violence. I think one thing that makes a good action sequence is surprise. Like I don't want to know going into it what the outcome is going to be. And I did feel like, the Scots were like these scrappy underdogs, and like I did feel that maybe at any point they could just get steamrolled by the English army. Like I didn't really have, not that this movie was historically accurate, but I didn't really have as much of the historical context. Like I don't really know what happened in history. So I'm like, yeah, maybe these guys just get absolutely flattened by England and they have to pivot and do something. Like I don't know how things are going to go down. And that's, I think, what keeps me entertained and interested.
Yeah, that's fair. The action scenes are surprising, and I do think even though I'd seen it before and kind of knew where it was going, yeah, it does like I think the movie never forgets, like, oh, these guys are up against like a literal fucking imperial, like, just like huge fucking
Right.
power.
Like I'll never not be entertained by an underdog. You
Yeah,
know, it's the Rocky complex. Like
totally.
that guy. You can't not root for the Scottish army, if you can call it an army. It's just a bunch of dudes that they got from a bunch of villages. And I just kind of like the camaraderie of it all. Like I like that they were going around from town to town, and then like one clan would show up and they're like, "We want to help you fight," and you're like, "Yeah, let's stick it to these guys."
Yeah.
That the English king, whatever his name was,
His name was King Longshanks.
yeah.
King Edward the First, played by Patrick McGoohan.
Great performance and just like really made him a villain. So it's like you just hate that guy so much. You're like, I can't wait until they get to, I don't know, the capital and stick it to this guy.
I agree. He's like, it's such a good, like, evil, just like there's nothing redemptive about him. He is just a bad guy. I also love, like, his son, Prince Edward, is like portrayed as he's like a gay character. Like he married Princess Isabel is like, I think she's the princess of like France, right?
He's French.
So King Longshanks is like, all right, I'm gonna marry Prince Edward to her. That way, like, uh there's more of a relationship between us and France. Like when we eventually need to like whatever do our fucking empire shit or whatever. And but I love Prince Edward's arc of like he sort of doesn't want to be king, and he's like he's sort of like kind of confidently gay, which I kind of like. Like he's sort of like, I'm in love. Like he doesn't say it, but like he's very obviously in love with like this like assistant guy. They obviously have a relationship. But then when Longshanks throws this fucking guy out of like the castle, like from the fucking top floor to his death, Prince
Incredible.
Edward's like, it's almost like a fucking masculinity switch gets turned on, and then he turns into a fucking evil asshole. Like, kind of like he doesn't make decisions, but like King Longshanks is like saying stuff, and he's like, yeah, that's what we gotta do.
Which is crazy that he's not instant his dad.
Yeah.
I wish I could paint a vivid picture of this, because you really just have to see it to believe it. He just so excitedly presents his dad with like, hey, here's this guy who's gonna be like helping us with our battle tactics. And the guy's like, yeah, I have so many great ideas. And King Edward Longshanks is like, oh, that's great. Actually, stand by this window. Boom! Just yeets him out. It's so funny. It's so, and yeah, he just flips the switch and just goes psycho mode.
Yeah. Um, it's pretty funny. This movie's very silly. I think, like, speaking of the politics stuff, like, what did you think of? Because like whenever they cut back to this movie, like I didn't remember really any of this stuff at all. I only remembered the William Wallace stuff, like of what I did remember, and this movie cuts back a lot to the English sort of being like, oh God, William Wallace, whatever. But then also just like you got Robert the Bruce, which is like the coolest name I've ever heard, played by Angus McFadden. He's there are like these nobles of Scotland who are like kind of considered like the political kind of like equals to England. Like they're sort of like the ones that England communicates with regarding Scotland, but like they're kind of in cahoots with each other. Um,
Right, like they're loyal to England, but they're Scottish essentially because they all live there.
yeah, but Robert the Bruce is like William Wallace kind of inspires him to be like, oh, actually, I want like a free Scotland also. But then the other nobles are like, no, like Longshanks promised us a lot of land and gold, so fuck William Wallace. Like the movie spends a lot of time doing that shit.
Well, I think Robert the Bruce is kind of like the audience in a sense, or at least like that's his intention as a character, is what I think.
Mhm.
Because like in order for William Wallace to be impactful, like you need people to be impacted by him and his not teachings, but I guess his bravado. And Robert the Bruce is kind of that guy. He's like he's on the fence. Like his father is always like, we got to remain loyal to England because I'm trying to set up this perfect life for you with land and property, whatever. And he's like kind of in his teen angst phase, being like, I want to fight for something that's real and I believe it. Like I want to fight for a free Scotland, which is pretty cool. Um, it's interesting to see his character kind of change and develop. Like he's the only character that really develops the movie. William Wallace is kind of the same throughout.
Yeah, he just loves talking about freedom, and I was with them.
But if you're gonna have that kind of character, like you need a Robert the Bruce in order to. You need a character to evolve somehow that means something to the story.
Yeah, I agree. I just think like speaking of William Wallace and like just sort of how consistent he is, his mission is so like sort of one track. Like he just wants freedom. And then when finally in the movie, uh, like 2.5 hours in, the nobles like, all right, they side with England and they sort of betray William and but then like there's whatever, like a few minutes pass and then like they come to William. They're like, all right, actually, because it's a trap. They're like, all right, actually, we're sorry about that. We just want you to come talk to Robert the Bruce. He said he wants to talk to you about fighting against England again. And like this turn is so weird because it's like all of a sudden William Wallace becomes like a dumbass. Like Hamish and Steven are both like, this is a trap, right? And he's like, it might be, but I gotta go.
He presents, yeah. He's like, well, we kind of need. Well, the reality is, it's believable because they have no army really, and he's like, we need their help in order to unite all the clans in Scotland. So, like, even if it could be a trap, but maybe it is a little stupid. But he's like, I have no choice, which I guess seems viable. I mean, these guys are underdogs. I do like that every single bat. There's like a theme of like the only reason that they keep winning these fights is because they just keep tricking England. They're like, nah, we're actually gonna surrender. We're gonna surrender. Ah, psych. And they're like, no. This time we're good. We're good. We're not gonna do anything. Psych. We're gonna kill you. You know what I mean? I like that whole thread.
Yeah, it is fun. Like England is like such a formal power. Like I'm even thinking of like
the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, which Mel Gibson is also in The Patriot.
Yes.
And like it's just funny that like again, I don't know how historically accurate this is, but at least how it's portrayed in America is that England came over during the Revolutionary War, was like, okay, we're all going to stand on the line and we're going to shoot at each other. And Americans were like, the fuck are you talking about? No, I'm going to shoot at you from behind this tree so I have cover and you don't expect it, dumbass.
Yeah, you guys have 1,000,000 guys. We have 42, and one of them is my granddad.
Yeah.
So we're shooting you from behind a tree. Thank you very much. It's the same thing. Like, the British just expect them to be like, okay, now do you dutifully accept our terms? And they're like, yeah, sure. And like, okay, great, they accept our terms. And it's like, psych, no, we're gonna run at you and stab you.
England can't even comprehend the idea that somebody would lie to them. They're like, wait, what are you talking about? We had a deal.
Why aren't you perfect gentlemen?
I don't know. I think this movie's all right. It's well made.
Looks nice.
Yeah.
Makes me want to go to Scotland. I'm like, I gotta check this place out.
Yeah, I think it was mostly shot in Ireland.
And that's, I think, a problem. No? The whole movie's about Scotland.
Yeah, maybe they shouldn't want smell in their country or something.
Maybe.
Yeah, just like the shots of like the cliffs. There's so many shots of like Mel Gibson just running up a fucking mountain, and you're like, this is movies.
Yeah, for sure. That is.
And then you have James Horner's fucking incredible bagpipe score.
Yeah.
Every time it came on, I'm like, this is maybe the best movie ever made.
I don't know if I thought that, but it does crush for sure.
Yeah.
there's some good like stinger one-liners in this movie that you'll be like, huh, okay. I forget who says it. Someone says they couldn't agree on the color of shite. I think Hamas does. And I'm like, I want to start using that.
Brendan Gleeson is Hamish. He gives it. Brendan Gleeson has never given a bad performance. So,
Shout out.
um,
What'd you think of the torture scene? They finally capture William Wallace.
well, because it's the '90s, and I think Mel hasn't like fully melled out yet. It's like not as gratuitous. It leaves it more for your imagination. Like it'll be like, oh, they're doing something to him like off screen, and like you just see his face like reacting to it. Like I think they like castrate him at one point, which is like
Yeah,
that's what they're doing, and it's like everybody's just watching. It's like horrifying.
that was entertainment back then.
Yeah, yeah. But even the audience is like, hey, maybe, hey, could you chill out, maybe?
They're like, give up, please. We don't want to see this actually.
It just feels like Mel is obsessed with like gratuitous violence against like martyrs. Like I mean,
Yeah.
it's him, it's Jesus Christ. I think Hacksaw Ridge, his movie with Andrew Garfield, I think he like gets the shit beat out of him, and there's so much violence in that movie. Um, so I was just kind of like viewing it like, what is Mel getting out of this here? And also like what does it mean for him to be portraying this man himself? And I don't have any answers to those questions. I was just like, this is sort of weird. I think in 1995 it didn't it didn't make people bristle at all. Probably it's probably just like, wow, we love Mel Gibson and this is such a powerful moment in the movie. But I was just in 2024, it's hard not to be like, what's he saying here about himself? Like I was more interested in that, like the psychology of Mel. As a scene in a movie, it's effective and I think it's upsetting, and you're like, just fucking kill the guy already. Like this is like brutal.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to get into Mel Gibson's psychology, but I just think that's the character he likes to play.
Yeah.
Maybe you could probably argue that it's a power complex or megalomaniacal or what have you, but um, I think he just likes to be a martyr. I don't know.
I like that I brought up all this like bullshit and you're like, yeah, I don't know what to do with that. The movie was good, I guess. I Sorry, I didn't mean to fucking be a fucking Poindexter.
Nah, dude, it's good. I'm just saying, it's just not about like I'm not really thinking about Mel Gibson while I'm watching. I'm thinking about I'm just treating it as the character of William Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like like he did all the terrible things that he says and believes. I'm putting that to the side temporarily just to think. Although it does, I mean, it can't help but seep into the movie. It was the same with Annie Hall. Like how am I supposed to sympathize with this character who's talking so in depth about? At least in Annie Hall, like he was talking like that movie deals so much with romance and relationships where you're like, it's painfully obvious the things that Woody Allen did and said. At least in this, like Mel Gibson's just a guy running around in a kilt, like killing people for Scotland. Like that's to like tie into his personal life.
That's true. He was never actually a Scottish revolutionary.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, like I think the final scene is kind of hammy though. It's very like
Yeah.
like you're not genuinely moved. You're just like there it is. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like you expected. Like yes, yes, freedom indeed.
It's just, I really wish this movie, because every time anybody, like, even, not even, I guess, asks, anytime anybody's like, asks William Wallace, like, what are you getting out of this? And he's like, freedom for Scotland. That's always consistently. And I'm like, I wish the movie, and again, if maybe it's just because this movie's historically inaccurate, maybe because there isn't enough information on William Wallace, but I'm like, obviously I'm on the side of William Wallace's mission for a free Scotland from English rule. But I'm like, but everybody's putting their energy behind this one guy. I'm like, isn't that the same thing as what England is doing? Like, isn't it like we're putting so much faith in this one man to be the virtuous spokesperson for us. And I'm like, but the movie never interrogates that. And it's like, it never interrogates like, what's William Wallace getting out of like, does he, because they're in that last scene before he goes and meets the nobles where Hamish and Stephen are like, this is a trap. Hamish is also like, are you like, what are you doing this for? Like, it's the one time in the movie where he's like, why are you like, he's like, do you want to be a martyr? He's like, do you just want to like be remembered in history? Like, is all just ego kind of he's suggesting? And then William is like, he kind of shuts it down. He's like, I want to live. I want peace. I don't want to fucking, I don't want to die. And I'm like, I want more of that in the movie. Huh?
Bad time for Hamish to ask that question, right?
Yeah, it's like he's about to walk into a trap. It's the movie ends in 25 minutes. And again, maybe that's asking too much. It is like I also can step back enough to be like the movie isn't that. The movie is a historical epic that's supposed to be like kind of like very rousing, very like inspiring, very moving.
I think a lot of what he said, I think a lot of what he believes, what William Wallace believes, like can be tied back to his father. So maybe it wasn't as useless of a 40 minutes as I initially thought. But when they talk about initially going against the English, his father and all of his compatriots, they go out to battle when William's a kid. They're like, we can't beat them. And then his dad is like, we don't have to beat them. We have to fight them. And I think that messaging has really affected William in his adulthood. Like, I'm not here to win. I don't care what happens. Like, I want to fight back for my freedom, and I want to inspire my countrymen to fight back for their freedom as well. I think that's really his main objective. Maybe it's not articulated that well in the movie, but I do think that's what he believes.
Yeah, I like that. I'm just asking the movie to be something that it isn't, I guess.
I think it is what it says it is. I think there are a lot of points where it falls short, but I do think like the core thing that it says it's going to deliver, it does.
Which is freedom, baby.
Freedom, baby. Gotta have it.
Do you have any final thoughts on Braveheart? He has sex with Princess Isabel, forgets about his wife, doesn't care about her anymore.
That's right. Classic tale as old as time, I think, for a lot of Gladiator picture or example. Other than that, no. I think it's a good movie worth watching. It'll get you riled up. I think the end falls a little bit flat. But other than that, it's a pretty rousing film. There are like fun moments. They're like, it's just fun to see a ragtag group of folks going against the powers that be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like this. Like, I don't think I had a fun time watching this movie. Fun isn't the right word, but it was very entertaining. I was never bored. It's like a 3-hour movie, but like, it's not one of these like grueling 3-hour movies that drags. It like kind of goes by I wouldn't say it flies by, but it goes by like at a steady clip.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a well-made movie. It's good. It's fun.
I know. Go check it out.
Would you like to hear the Best Picture nominees for the year 1996?
Yes.
All right. So obviously, Braveheart wins Best Pitch.
Congrats.
But other nominees for this year include Ron Howard's father of Bryce Dallas.
Wow.
Ron Howard's Apollo 13.
With Hanks.
It's the true story of technical troubles that scuttle the Apollo 13 lunar mission in 1970, risking the lives of astronaut Jim Lovell and his crew, with the failed journey turning into a thrilling saga of heroism. Drifting more than 200,000 miles from Earth, space is insane. The astronauts work furiously with the ground crew to avert tragedy.
Have you seen it?
No, I've never seen. I think I've seen parts on TV, but I will not say that I've seen the movie.
I think I've seen the scene where they land the lander
Okay.
in the ocean, I believe.
Yeah, they always land it in the ocean. Put it in the water, they say.
Shout out to Sully.
Next up, we have Chris Noonan's Babe,
No,
about a little pig that could.
you're joking.
I'm not.
This is an Oscar-nominated film?
That you didn't know was nominated for Best Picture, dude.
Certainly did not. That is crazy to me.
Produced by George Miller, famous for the
Mad
Mad
Max.
Max franchise.
Okay.
George Miller actually directed Babe, Pig in the City. He directs the next movie. I'm not kidding. Um,
Was that nominated?
I don't think so. I think that movie people were like, this one's weird. I've never seen either of these movies, but I will someday.
Babe is weird. Babe is like, I always conflate it with Charlotte's. So I can't really. I have seen it. I can't quite spin the plot together in my head, but I do remember always seeing it at Hollywood Video, like at the checkout. Like, there's a sale on Babe this week.
I mean, I hear it rules. I hear the second one also rules. I'll see him one day. I love George Miller. And Babe is the tagline is a little pig goes a long way. Great tagline.
Great tagline, yeah. I always just thought it was like a silly kids movie.
I think it is, but for some reason it was like, and good for Babe. For some reason it was taken really seriously by the Academy. I think it was like sort of undeniable. It was like, this is so perfectly made that we kind of can't not give it a Best Picture nominee.
That's one of those movies where, like, that kind of reminds me that the Academy is a collective of individuals. And I think there was probably just one person in there who's like, we gotta give a nod to Babe. This thing rules.
Babe is a little pig who doesn't quite know his place in the world. Relatable. With a bunch of odd friends like Ferdinand the Duck, who thinks he is a rooster, and Fly the dog he calls Mum, Babe
What?
realizes that he has the makings to become the greatest sheep pig of all time, and Farmer Hoggett knows it. With the help of the sheepdogs, Babe learns that a pig can be anything that he wants to be.
Sure, give it the Oscar, I guess.
It's 91 minutes. Sounds kind of nice.
It does. I have definitely seen it. It's worth a rewatch to jog my memory.
Yeah, I'll put it on the list. It'll shoot to the top of my list.
Nice.
Next up we have a movie that truly seems like it's been forgotten to time because I've never heard of it. It's directed by Michael Radford. It is, I think it's an Italian movie. Il Postino, aka, for all you English speakers, The Postman.
Ah, yes, see.
It's about a simple Italian postman, spoilers, who learns to love poetry while delivering mail to a famous poet. He uses this to woo local beauty Beatrice.
Oh, and turns out she is the poet.
Oh, that actually might be it. You just wrote The Postman.
How about that? Oscar Wiener Consultants. Is the poet edible? We'll rewrite it for you.
That's the Wiener guarantee.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't know. I will probably never see this movie. No offense to Michael Radford and his film.
I will give offense.
And finally, we have a movie I definitely need to see. It's directed by one of our great living directors, Ang Lee, director of Brokeback Mountain, The Hulk from 2003,
Really?
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Wow.
He has a very diverse filmography. And this is no exception. It is an adaptation of Jane Austen's immortal tale, Sense and Sensibility.
Really?
Yeah.
He's just flying all over the place, that Ong.
And it's about the Dashwood sisters, sensible Eleanor and passionate Mary Ann, whose chances at marriage seem doomed by their family's sudden loss of fortune. When Henry Dashwood dies unexpectedly, his estate must pass on by law to his son from his first marriage.
Huh?
John and wife Fanny. So the father of Eleanor and Mary Ann, he was married to a woman before, I guess, their mother. And he had a son with that woman named John. So his estate passes on to John.
Do they have a pig named Babe by any chance? Otherwise, I'm not interested.
But these circumstances leave Mr. Dashwood's current wife and daughters, Eleanor, Marianne, and Margaret, without a home and with barely enough money to live on. As Eleanor and Marianne struggle to find romantic fulfillment in a society obsessed with financial and social status, they must learn to mix sense with sensibility in their dealings with both money and men. Those are the nominees. Amber.
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
all?
That's all.
How many was that? Like 5?
Just 5.
Wow. Okay.
Ander, do you think
Babe? With the Babe. I really am. Just for the fact that I saw it at Hollywood Video a couple times and rented it once and forgot about it mostly. But I got a jumbo popcorn and it was okay.
I think I'm also going to give it to Babe.
That's crazy.
So, Braveheart, I guess it's Oscar worthy in its scale and its ambition, but I think ultimately my heart was sort of claimed by a little piggy who could.
Sorry. Damn, now I really do have to rewatch that movie. I thought Braveheart was good. Braveheart, sure. Actually, I don't think it's Oscar worthy.
Wow.
You know what? I'm kind of reversing stance a little bit because it didn't really. I don't think it pushed the medium forward.
In 1927, when Wings won Best Picture, they could have imagined a movie like Braveheart. They could not have imagined that a pig would talk on screen.
That is such a bar, dude. That is perhaps the truest thing that we have said on this show. But we both know what we have to say doesn't really matter. We're just talking into the ether. What matters is what the people of the internet have to say about Braveheart. I'd like to protect their anonymity. So give me the name of somebody who is a film photographer. Went to Yellowstone National Park. Shot 3 full rolls of film, and brought them back to get them developed, only to realize that the lens cap was on the entire time.
The whole time?
The entire time. Just 3 weeks of a beautiful vacation in Yellowstone. Just no memories from it. Thought of getting maybe like a little postcard or a magnet, some sort of souvenir, but said, no, I've got the photos that I've taken. I think they're going to come out great. And it'll tell the tale of the journey that I embarked on at this turning point in my life, that I can show my friends and family, and they'll be in awe of the things that I saw and experienced. Only for them to be blank.
It's gotta be Stanley Craglison.
Craglison, the poor bastard he is, says half of a star for Braveheart. Just really bad. Just not feeling it. He says ass. The English were bad enough. You don't have to make shit up.
Nice.
Simple.
I respect that.
Give me the name of somebody who's just equally displeased. They found a fly in their soup that day.
It's gotta be Carly Stanlington.
Carly Stanlington, wife of Stanley Stanlington, says half of a star. Would rather slam my head against a wall for 3 hours than watch this again. And that's pretty brutal. That's tough. That's tough to hear. I disagree with that, but teach their own. But finally, give me the name of somebody who's perhaps James Cameron's best friend and companion.
It's gotta be Submersible 2980. His best friend.
His only true pal in this world. Submersible 2980 said 5 whole stars for Braveheart.
Wow.
Between this film and Avatar, I'm just 2 steps from tattooing my face blue. Mel and I have the same credo. All these sentences are punctuated with exclamation points, by the way.
Got it.
Mel and I have the same credo. Go big or go home. Mel didn't stop at big. He went full-blown postal and never once looked back. Mel may be a flawed individual. We all are. But he's one hell of an actor and director.
I don't think all of us are flawed in quite the same way.
Not in quite the same aspects, no. The sentiment rings true, but some perhaps are a bit more flawed than others.
Um, this movie, James Horner did the score, which we mentioned earlier. He also did the score. He's sort of a regular collaborator of James Cameron. He did the score for Aliens. He did do the score for Avatar. He didn't do the second one because I think he passed away between, because those movies are a million years apart, so he passed away between um both of them. But
Yeah.
at times, like, there's no bagpipes that I can recall in Avatar, but like James Horner's Braveheart score like did sort of evoke Avatar for me.
Yeah, I think James Cameron, when he presented Avatar to James Horner, was like, give me bagpipes, but the Na'vi version.
Yeah.
And he delivered. He delivered on that.
I want this score to sound like the voice of Awa looking down on us all.
And James Horner said, what? What are you talking about? I haven't spoken to you in 6 years. You want what to sound like the voice of Awa? I don't even know why you call.
Thanks for those. Next week, we are going to talk about some random bullshit.
Nice.
1945 Best Picture winner, Going My Way,
How about that?
directed by Leo McCarey,
Okay. Ooh, that's a new name.
who will be on the show
Nice.
to defend his film.
Oh, are we going to be attacking his film?
He's 115 years young.
He's spry as anything. He's got a quick wit.
If you've ever find yourself in a Scottish field of green,
Yes.
and you find yourself up against what seems like an insurmountable force, headed by just the most evil man who ever lived, and you want to antagonize that little fucker,
Yeah.
lift up your skirt? Sorry, your kilt.
Right. Good save.
and bare your bunned wiener to all.
Yeah.
Sprinkle a little diced onion on there. A little mustard, a little ketchup.
It's so excessive.
And say, hey, Longshanks, have a munch of this, how about? And give me my freedom today.
England truly would have fallen that day. If only they had the foresight.
See you next week, Wieners.
Bye-bye.
1, 2, 3, 4. These boys only want the best stuff. They want the cream of the crop. They don't want none of that Michael Bay shit. They want the shit that bops. Oscar bait, black and white, maybe something French. If it's got more than one explosion, honey, put that shit on the bench. Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners. These boys are the Oscar Wieners.
Take your time.
Give me 5 minutes.
Think a lot. Think of everything you've got. You're still young. That's your fault. There's so much you have to go through. Find a girl. Settle down.
If you want, you can marry.
Look at me. I am old, but I'm happy.
God damn it. It's Tuesday afternoon. I don't have time for this.
I'm at a work meeting now. I'm crying on camera.